Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The hum of the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Fair was palpable as people from various planets mingled, their languages and laughter intertwining in the air. The Earth section, adorned with vibrant banners and aromatic food stalls, buzzed with excitement. John, a chef known for his adventurous palate, adjusted his apron and surveyed his dessert station with pride. His setup was simple but elegant, featuring an array of desserts designed to introduce alien visitors to the flavors of Earth. As John placed the last of his chocolate lava cakes on the display, his friend and fellow chef Marco approached with a grin. "Looks like your booth is going to be the hit of the fair, John. Did you see how many people are lining up already?" John laughed, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I just hope they like what they taste. It's not every day you get to serve food to beings from across the galaxy." At that moment, a figure approached, her slender form draped in a shimmering, translucent robe that reflected the colorful lights of the fair. Her large, curious eyes scanned the desserts before settling on John. "Is this what Earthlings enjoy for sweetness?" she asked, her voice musical yet unfamiliar. John smiled, stepping forward. "Yes, welcome. I'm John, and these are some of our favorite desserts. Would you like to try one?" The alien, Zara, nodded eagerly. "I would be delighted. I am Zara, from the planet Gliese. We cherish sweetness, but it is rare in our diet." "Then you're in for a treat," Marco chimed in, handing her a small plate with a piece of the chocolate lava cake. Zara's eyes widened as she took a small bite, her expression one of instant astonishment. "Oh, this is unlike anything I've ever tasted," she exclaimed. The rich chocolate seemed to overwhelm her, and she inadvertently took a larger bite than intended. John watched, fascinated. "It's strong, isn't it? Earth desserts can be quite intense." "Yes, it's very potent," Zara replied, her cheeks flushing a light shade of violet. "I fear I may have taken too much at once." Laughing, John offered her a glass of water. "It happens to the best of us. Here, this should help." Zara accepted the glass, her fingers brushing against John's, sparking a tiny static flicker. "Thank you, John. Your planet has many delights, I see." Marco watched the exchange with a playful grin. "John here is one of the best when it comes to sweet things. He's a bit of a magician in the kitchen." Flattered and slightly embarrassed, John shrugged. "I just like making people happy with food. Tell me, Zara, what kind of desserts do you have on Gliese?" "Our desserts are mostly fruit-based, very mild in flavor. Nothing as explosive as this," Zara replied, gesturing to the lava cake. Intrigued, John proposed, "Maybe you could show me some of your traditional food sometime?" "I'd love to learn about Glesian cuisine." "I would like that very much," Zara said, her smile brightening. It is wonderful to exchange culture through food. As they chatted, more aliens and humans alike drifted over to the booth, drawn by the sight of Zara's animated expressions and the exotic desserts. John and Marco served cake after cake, answering questions and sharing laughs. As the crowd thinned, John turned to Zara. "How about a tour of the fair? There's a lot more to see, and I could use a break from the booth." Zara's eyes lit up. "I would appreciate that, John. Lead the way." Together, they left the booth in Marco's capable hands and ventured into the throng, side by side, their conversation flowing easily. Little did John know, this impromptu dessert tasting was just the beginning of a much larger adventure. John and Zara meandered through the bustling lanes of the fair, their shadows mingling under the glow of neon lights from various stalls. The air was filled with a cacophony of sounds from distant worlds, a symphony of intergalactic culture. As they approached the stalls showcasing technological gadgets from another galaxy, John noticed Zara's demeanor had shifted. She seemed quieter, more introspective. "Everything okay?" John asked, turning to face her, his brow furrowed with concern. Zara hesitated, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of a stall's metallic display. "John, I must confess, I feel somewhat uneasy. Back at your booth, when I took too much of the dessert, I worry I may have appeared greedy or disrespectful. It is not our way to take without giving. John chuckled softly, shaking his head. Oh, Zara, no need to worry about that. Here on Earth, especially at a fair like this, it's all about trying new things. You didn't offend anyone. If anything, you made my day by enjoying my food so much. Relief washed over Zara's features, her smile returning. I am glad to hear this. I find your customs fascinating, John, so different from what I am used to. Seizing the moment to deepen their cultural exchange, John suggested, "Why don't you tell me more about Glee's customs? Maybe we can find a quiet spot." Nodding eagerly, Zara led the way to a small, less crowded pavilion nearby, designed to mimic an Earth-style cafe. They settled into the comfortable seating, the ambient noise of the fair fading into a gentle backdrop. "As you have shared your food with me, I would like to share something of Glee's with you," Zara began, her voice soft but clear. "On Glee's, every meal is a transaction of trust and respect. We often exchange stories or songs as we share food. It's a way to bond and show appreciation beyond the mere act of eating." Intrigued, John leaned in, his interest piqued. "That sounds beautiful. Do you think we can share stories now? I'd love to learn more through your traditions." Zara's face lit up, and she began recounting tales of Glee's, of skies that changed colors with the mood of their sun, and of mountains that whispered old secrets to those who dared to listen. John listened, utterly captivated, occasionally asking questions that led Zara to open up more about her world. As the conversation flowed, another fairgoer approached their table. He was a tall, elderly man with a gentle smile, dressed in garments that shimmered with a subtle light. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you discussing Glesian culture?" he inquired warmly. "Yes, we are," John replied, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please join us. I'm John, and this is Zara." The man nodded in greeting as he sat down. "I'm Harold, from Alpha Centauri. We are neighbors, in cosmic terms. Our planets have shared knowledge and culture for decades." Zara and Harold quickly engaged in a conversation about interstellar trade and cultural exchanges, with John interjecting questions and comments, eager to absorb the knowledge being shared. As the hours slipped by, the trio found themselves surrounded by a small crowd, drawn in by the fascinating exchange. John realized then that his initial plan to introduce Earth's flavors was becoming something bigger, a true cultural exchange. As the pavilion lights dimmed, signaling the fair's impending closure for the night, John stood, stretching his legs. "I think it's about time we head back. Marco will wonder if I've decided to travel to another planet." Zara and Harold chuckled, rising to join him. As they walked back to the dessert booth, Zara leaned closer to John. "Thank you for this evening, for easing my worries, and for sharing your world with me." John smiled, placing a friendly hand on her shoulder. "The pleasure was all mine. And hey, maybe tomorrow you can show me something from Glee's? A recipe or a song, perhaps?" Zara nodded enthusiastically, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. "It would be my honor, John." As they parted ways at the booth, John couldn't help but feel that the fair was just the beginning of a remarkable journey. Not just for him, but for all who dared to explore the vastness of the universe's cultures. The next morning, as the fairgrounds began to stir with early visitors and exhibitors preparing their stations, John was already bustling around in his kitchen at the booth. His mind was alive with ideas for incorporating a bit of interstellar flair into today's menu, inspired by his conversations with Zara and Harold the previous evening. Marco arrived, coffee in hand, and noticed the extra spring in John's step. "You're up early, and looking more chipper than usual. Did the muse visit you in your dreams, or is it the company of our alien guests?" John laughed, arranging his utensils meticulously. "A bit of both, I guess. I'm planning something special for today. Zara's going to share a bit of Glee's culture with us. I thought I'd reciprocate by tweaking our earthly desserts to better suit their palates." "Sounds intriguing," Marco said, peering over John's shoulder at the sketches of dessert modifications laid out on the counter. What's the plan? I'm thinking of softening the flavors, less sugar, more fruit. Maybe infuse some subtle spices to mimic what Zara described about their foods. As they spoke, Zara approached, her graceful steps quiet against the morning bustle. She wore a radiant smile, which grew even brighter upon seeing John and Marco engrossed in their culinary planning. "Good morning, John Marco," Zara greeted, her eyes scanning the sketches. "What are we creating today?" John handed her a sketch. "Good morning, Zara. I was hoping you could guide us. We want to make a dessert that feels like a piece of Glees here on Earth." Zara examined the drawing. Her interest piqued. "This is thoughtful, John. Let's add a drizzle of honey. It's a rare treat on Glees, but cherished deeply when available." "Honey it is," John agreed, noting it down. "And for the main event, let's make a fruit tart, using less sugar and incorporating a blend of Earth and Glees fruits. I can describe the fruits from Glees that might blend well with your Earth varieties." As they set to work, the booth transformed into a mini culinary lab. Zara described her planet's fruits: tangy, less sweet, with complex flavors. John and Marco experimented with various combinations, occasionally asking Zara to taste and provide feedback. "More of this one, less of that," Zara directed, her enthusiasm infectious. Marco, usually reserved, found himself laughing more freely, fully engaged in the creative process. The morning passed in a blur of activity, with the trio finally settling on a final recipe. The tart was a masterpiece of interstellar collaboration, a delicate pastry base, a layer of light cream infused with Earth vanilla and Glees zinger fruit, topped with a colorful array of thinly sliced fruits and a light honey drizzle. As they placed the finished tarts on display, a crowd began to form around the booth, drawn by the intriguing aromas and the sight of John, Marco, and Zara's animated preparations. John served the first slice to a young couple from a nearby system, their dual sets of eyes wide with curiosity. "This is a collaboration between Earth and Glees, a blend of our worlds," John explained. "We hope you enjoy it." The couple tasted the tart, their expressions thoughtful, then brightly appreciative. "It's marvelous," they exclaimed, their praise echoing through the crowd, drawing even more attendees to the booth. As the day unfolded, John found himself not just serving desserts, but also sharing stories about Earth and learning about other cultures in return. Zara stayed by his side, helping explain the joint venture to her fellow aliens, bridging the gap between different worlds through food. Towards the end of the day, as the crowd thinned and the sun began to dip below the horizon, Marco clapped John on the back. "You know, John, we started this fair hoping to impress with Earth's flavors, but I think we're walking away with much more than that." John nodded, his gaze resting on Zara, who was chatting animatedly with a group of visitors. "Yeah, we're not just sharing food. We're making friends, learning new perspectives. It's more than I could have hoped for." As Zara returned, her smile matched the warmth in John's heart. "Thank you, John, for embracing Glees so beautifully." "It was my pleasure, truly," John responded, his eyes bright. "And the fair isn't over yet. There's still more to share, more to learn." With the setting sun casting long shadows over the fairgrounds, John, Marco, and Zara began to clean up their booth, already discussing plans for the next day, eager to explore further the culinary cosmos they had just begun to tap into. The morning was crisp and bright, with a hint of excitement in the air as John prepared for another day of cultural exploration with Zara. Today, though, they would step away from the bustling fairgrounds to experience Earth's natural and urban wonders. They planned to start their day at a local botanical garden, famed for its collection of exotic plants and tranquil landscapes. John met Zara at the entrance of the garden, where she was visibly fascinated by the diversity of Earth's flora. "This place feels like a living museum," she remarked, her eyes wide with wonder as she touched the petals of a blooming orchid. "It kind of is," John agreed, leading her along a path lined with vibrant flower beds and lush greenery. "Each plant here tells a part of Earth's story, just like each dish you tried tells a story of our culture." Their guide for the day, Michael, a botanist and an old college friend of John's, joined them, his enthusiasm for his work evident. Welcome to our little paradise, he greeted, shaking Zara's hand. I hear you're from Glees? We might have a few plants from your region in our extraterrestrial section. Zara's interest piqued, and she quickly engaged Michael in a detailed discussion about the adaptability of plant species between Earth and Glees, impressing John with her knowledge of xenobotany. As they ventured deeper into the garden, Michael pointed out various plants, explaining their ecological and medicinal uses. Zara listened intently, occasionally asking insightful questions that made Michael raise his eyebrows in admiration. So, Zara, are any of these similar to what you have on Glees? John asked as they paused by a small waterfall, cascading into a clear pond. Some are vaguely familiar, but the diversity here is astounding, Zara replied. We have strict regulations on biodiversity due to our delicate ecosystems. Their next stop was the city's cultural district, where they explored art galleries, museums, and theaters. At a modern art museum, they met another of John's friends, Luis, a local artist whose vibrant paintings often depicted scenes blending human and alien landscapes. Luis welcomed them warmly, guiding them through his latest exhibition, which explored themes of unity and diversity. Art, like food, is a universal language, Luis mused, gesturing towards a canvas depicting a harmonious blend of earthly and alien natural elements. Zara was particularly taken with a piece that used a mix of earthly watercolors and Glesian metallic inks. This is beautiful, she said, her tone awed. It captures the essence of both worlds perfectly. I was inspired by stories from travelers like yourself, Luis replied, smiling. It's fascinating how much we can communicate without words. As the day turned to evening, the trio found themselves at a cozy local cafe, discussing their experiences over coffee and pastries. John was pleased to see how well Zara was adapting to and enjoying Earth's culture. Today was enlightening, Zara confessed as they relaxed in the cafe's rustic setting. I feel like I understand your world a little better now. And I feel the same about yours, John said, glad for the exchange. It's not just about seeing new places, but seeing them with someone who sees them differently. Zara nodded, her gaze thoughtful. Perhaps tomorrow we could do something typical of your culture? Something everyday people do, not just at fairs or in gardens. John liked the idea. How about a picnic in the park? We could make some sandwiches, grab some fruit, maybe even fly a kite. That sounds delightful, Zara replied with a genuine smile. I'd like that very much. As they left the cafe and walked back to the fairgrounds under the soft glow of streetlights, John felt a profound sense of connection, not just to a new friend from a distant world, but to his own world, seen through fresh, curious eyes. The day had been one of mutual discovery, and as he bid Zara good night, he looked forward to what the next day would bring. The day of the picnic arrived, adorned with a clear, sunny sky and a gentle breeze, perfect for the outdoor activities John had planned. He met Zara at the park entrance, picnic basket in hand, filled with all sorts of earthly delights. Sandwiches, fruits, and a couple of pastries left over from yesterday's experiment at the booth. Good morning, Zara. Ready for a day in the park? John greeted, his spirits high. Zara, dressed in a light, flowing garment that fluttered with the breeze, smiled warmly. Very much, John. This is a beautiful place. As they found a nice spot under a large oak tree, John spread out a blanket and began unpacking the basket. I thought we'd start with a simple Earth tradition, lunch in the park. And later, if you're up for it, we can try flying a kite. Have you ever done that? No, I have not, Zara replied, her eyes following the colorful kites dancing in the sky. It looks fun, though. Their lunch conversation meandered through various topics, from the mundane aspects of daily life on Earth and Glees to the more profound notions of art and culture they discussed the previous day. As they talked, another friend of John's, Tom, joined them with his kite-flying gear. Hey, John, Zara, Tom called out as he approached a large, dragon-shaped kite in his arms. Thought I might find you here. Brought the big guy today. Ready to give it a go? Absolutely, John replied, finishing his sandwich. Zara, this is Tom. Tom, "Meet Zara from Glee's." "Pleased to meet you," Tom said, offering a hand, which Zara shook curiously, still somewhat unfamiliar with the gesture. Tom wasted no time in setting up the kite, explaining the basics to Zara. Kite flying is all about balance and wind. You feel the tug and you guide it, almost like you're part of the sky. Zara listened intently, then with a bit of guidance, took the string reel. The kite ascended, and her delight was palpable. She laughed, a sound full of joy, as she felt the kite respond to her touch. "It's like it's alive," she exclaimed. "Exactly," Tom cheered. "You're a natural." As the afternoon wore on, the park began to fill with more people, all there to enjoy the day and the upcoming Festival of Lights, an annual event where the park would be illuminated with thousands of lights and lanterns as the sun set. "Stick around for the festival," Tom suggested as he helped Zara reel in the kite. "It's really something to see." As dusk approached, they secured a good spot by the lakeside where the festival's main activities were centered. Lanterns lit up, floating on the water and hanging from the trees, transforming the park into a glowing wonderland. John and Zara sat side by side, watching the lights reflect on the lake's surface. In the soft glow, John turned to Zara, noticing how the light played off her features. "This is beautiful, John. Does this festival have a special meaning?" Zara asked, her voice soft against the backdrop of murmuring crowds and distant music. "It's a celebration of light, of the longer days of summer," John explained. "But it's also a time for people to come together, share experiences, just enjoy being part of a community." Zara nodded thoughtfully. "On Glee's, we have a similar celebration for the alignment of our moons. It's a time of unity and gratitude." Their conversation deepened as they shared more about their traditions, finding common ground in differences alike. The evening culminated when John took Zara's hand, leading her to a quiet corner away from the crowd. Under the canopy of lights, he turned to her, their hands still joined. "Zara, I really enjoyed these past few days, learning about Glee's, sharing parts of Earth with you." Zara's eyes met his, a gentle understanding passing between them. "So have I, John. It's been enlightening and very special." Encouraged by her words, John leaned closer, and under the shimmering lights, they shared their first kiss, a soft, tentative connection that spoke of new beginnings and the promise of more to discover about each other. The festival continued around them, the lights a soft echo of the spark that had just been ignited. After the magical evening at the Festival of Lights, John and Zara's friendship had blossomed into something deeper. The following day, John invited Zara to his apartment, a modest place he often joked was more a kitchen than a living space due to his obsession with cooking. Zara arrived at John's apartment in the early evening, a curious look on her face as she surveyed the small, cozy environment filled with culinary books, utensils, and the rich aroma of something already simmering on the stove. "Welcome to my humble abode," John greeted, opening the door wider. "I hope you're hungry. I've been cooking up something special." Zara stepped inside, her eyes roaming over the neat, organized kitchen. "It smells wonderful. What are you making?" "It's a surprise, a blend of earth and Gleesian flavors." "I think you'll like it," John said with a confident smile. He led her to the kitchen where he handed her an apron. "Want to help me finish up?" Delighted, Zara tied on the apron. "I'd love to." As they cooked together, the kitchen filled with laughter and shared stories. John instructed Zara on the finer points of seasoning, while she explained some Gleesian techniques for food preservation that fascinated him. Once the meal was ready, a spicy, tangy stew with both earth vegetables and Gleesian tubers, they moved to the small dining table to enjoy the fruits of their labor. "This is delicious, John. You've captured the essence of Glees wonderfully," Zara complimented, tasting a spoonful of the stew. John beamed at the praise. "I'm glad you think so. It's all about the balance of flavors." Their dinner conversation gradually shifted from food to more personal topics. Zara shared more about her life on Glees, her family, and her dreams, while John spoke about his passions, his past, and his hopes for the future. As the evening wore on, they cleared the table and moved to the living room, where a comfortable silence settled over them, each lost in thought about the deepening connection they felt. Zara broke the silence, her voice soft. "John, I have never felt this welcomed and understood, not just by you but by your entire world. It's more than I ever expected." John nodded, his expression serious. "I feel the same, Zara. There's something special here, something worth exploring." He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "And, well, that's why I wanted to ask you something important." Zara tilted her head, listening intently. "I know this might seem sudden, but how would you feel about extending your stay on Earth? There's so much more I'd like to show you, so much more we can learn from each other." Zara's smile was gentle and warm. "I'd like that very much. My mission was to explore and learn, and I can think of no better way to do that than here with you." Encouraged by her response, John reached across the small space between them, taking her hand. "I'm glad, because there's nothing I would enjoy more." Their eyes met, and in that moment, a mutual understanding deepened between them. Slowly, John leaned in, and Zara met him halfway. Their kiss this time filled with the promise of new beginnings and shared tomorrows. As they parted, Zara laughed softly, the sound bright in the quiet room. "I accidentally bit your dessert that first day at the fair, and it ignited an unquenchable passion," she quoted, her eyes twinkling with joy. John chuckled, his heart light. "I guess we have that dessert to thank for this then." With their hearts and intentions clear, they spent the rest of the evening planning Zara's extended stay, discussing everything from cultural exchange programs to potential joint culinary projects. As Zara left later that night, the bond between them was stronger than ever, each step forward now taken together. The days following Zara's decision to extend her stay were filled with activity. John and Zara spent considerable time together, often accompanied by John's friends, who had all grown fond of Zara and her insightful perspectives on life and culture. One morning, while John and Zara were planning a series of cooking workshops that would blend Earth and Glesian cuisines, Marco dropped by John's apartment with a concerned expression. "Morning, John, Zara." Marco greeted them as he entered. He seemed hesitant, fidgeting with a news tablet he'd brought along. "Have you guys seen this?" John, who had been setting up the kitchen for a test run of their workshop recipes, looked up, alarmed by Marco's tone. "Seen what?" Marco handed over the tablet, which displayed an article titled Interstellar Relations, the Cultural Exchange or Invasion. The piece was critical of the growing number of aliens like Zara deciding to extend their stays on Earth, questioning their motives and the impact on human culture. John skimmed the article, his brow furrowing. "This is ridiculous. It's fear-mongering." Zara, reading over his shoulder, sighed. "It's not unexpected, though. Such sentiments exist on Glees as well, about humans and other species. We can't let this kind of thing slow us down," John said, looking at Zara with a supportive glance. "What we're doing is important. It's about understanding and respect." Marco nodded. "Exactly. And that's why we need to make sure these workshops are a hit. Show the positive side of this cultural exchange." The three of them spent the morning finalizing their plans, discussing how to handle potential backlash, and emphasizing the benefits of their initiatives. They decided to involve more community leaders and media to spread a positive message about the workshops. The following week, as the first of these workshops kicked off, the turnout was impressive. John, Zara, and Marco were busy teaching, cooking, and interacting with an enthusiastic crowd. Among the attendees was Michael, the botanist, who brought along some rare plants to discuss the culinary uses of Glesian flora. "So, Michael, think you can convince them to try your Glesian leaf wraps?" John joked as he prepped for a cooking demonstration. "Only if you convince them that your spicy Terran salsa isn't going to melt their taste buds," Michael retorted with a laugh. The workshop was a vibrant affair, with participants from various backgrounds eager to learn and share. The local news media, which had been invited by Marco, covered the event, showcasing the laughter, learning, and culinary delights that emerge from the fusion of earth and glees. After the workshop, as they were cleaning up, a reporter approached John and Zara for a comment. "Can you tell us what you think events like these mean for our community?" she asked, her camera operator filming the bustling room behind them. John glanced at Zara, who nodded for him to answer. "I think it's a testament to what we can achieve when we focus on what brings us together rather than what might set us apart. Food, like music or art, is a universal language. It can bridge worlds," Zara added. "On Glees, we believe that sharing a meal is sharing a piece of oneself. Here today, we shared pieces of two worlds." The enthusiasm and openness we've experienced speak volumes about the beauty of cultural exchange. The report aired later that evening, casting a positive light on the workshops and, by extension, on the broader concept of interstellar cultural exchanges. Over the next few days, John and Zara received messages of support and curiosity from all over the community. Schools asked for visits, culinary institutes proposed partnerships, and local cultural festivals invited them to participate. As they sat in John's kitchen, reviewing invitations and feedback, Zara smiled. "It seems we've ignited something bigger than we anticipated, John." John, who was scribbling notes, looked up and grinned. "Yeah, and it's only going to grow. Together, we're making a real difference." Their shared vision for a blended future, one meal at a time, was becoming a reality, strengthening their resolve to continue their work despite any challenges that might arise. The sun was setting on another busy day at the newly established Cultural Exchange Center that John and Zara had helped develop. The center, a hub for interstellar cultural dialogue and learning, had become a popular spot in the city, hosting events, workshops, and exhibitions that showcase the diversity of Earth and its interstellar visitors. As they prepared for the evening's closing ceremony, which marked the end of the first month of successful operations, John and Marco were busy setting up the main hall. The space was filled with displays of art and culinary stations, each representing different cultures from various planets. "Can you believe it's been a month already?" John asked Marco, arranging the last of the chairs. Marco, adjusting the sound system, laughed. "It's flown by. You and Zara have done something amazing here. I think it's really changing people's minds." Zara joined them, her eyes bright with excitement. "Everything looks wonderful. Tonight is going to be a celebration of all we've achieved and all we still hope to do." As guests began to arrive, John, Zara, and Marco greeted them, guiding them through the exhibits. The atmosphere was vibrant, with people of all species mingling, sharing stories, and laughing together. The highlight of the evening was a cooking demonstration led by John and Zara. They chose to prepare a dish that had become a symbol of their partnership, a spicy sweet stew that perfectly balanced earth and Glesian flavors. "Welcome, everyone," John began, standing in front of the attendees gathered around the demonstration kitchen. "Tonight, Zara and I want to show you how two very different worlds can come together to create something wonderful." Zara smiled, taking over. "This dish uses ingredients from both our planets, blending them in a way that honors both our heritages. It's a dish of unity and friendship." As they cooked, they explained each step, each ingredient's significance, engaging the audience with questions and encouraging them to think about the essence of cultural exchange. The room filled with the aromatic scents of the stew, drawing more attendees to the demonstration area. After the cooking was done, they served the stew to the eager crowd, who tasted it with expressions of delight and curiosity. John and Zara watched, satisfied with the impact they were making. Later, as the event wound down, a senior diplomat from the Interstellar Council, who had attended the event, approached John and Zara. "Your work here is commendable," he said. "We are considering using your center as a model for others across different worlds. It's a testament to what can be achieved with open hearts and minds." John exchanged a proud look with Zara. "Thank you, sir. We believe passionately in this cause. It's more than just sharing food or art. It's about building a community that transcends planetary boundaries." Zara nodded in agreement. Each dish, each piece of art displayed here represents a bridge between worlds. We are grateful for the opportunity to show that unity is not just possible, but enriching. As the guests left, John, Zara, and Marco gathered for a moment of quiet reflection. What started with a simple bite of dessert has grown into something I could never have imagined, John said, his voice filled with wonder. And it will continue to grow, Zara added, her hand finding John's. We've started something that won't easily be forgotten. Marco raised his glass. To new worlds and new dishes. May your passion for this project continue to ignite hearts and minds everywhere. With the center quieting down, John and Zara walked hand in hand, reviewing the night's success and dreaming of the future. Their journey had begun with a simple misunderstanding, a bite of dessert, but it had blossomed into a passion that fueled not only their relationship, but also their shared mission to bring worlds together. As the lights dimmed in the main hall, they knew this was just the beginning. They had much to do, many more meals to share, and countless stories to weave into the tapestry of their interstellar community.